I just want to talk a little bit about my AD style. My AD style varies from set to set, and it has to, because I'm somebody who I have always been very good with adapting to my environment. That's kind of how I had to grow up. So I do the same thing when I start working, when I'm working on set. I kind of adapt to the environment of the set that the first AD kind of creates. And then I will still add some of my own flavor and style. And I'll see, certain things that, can't be compromised. I will step in, and some sets, the first AD doesn't like a lot of yelling. Some sets, the first AD does not want any of the PAs or the second AD to raise their voice, and then there are some sets that you work on where it's absolutely necessary to have to raise your voice. If not, everybody's gonna step all over you. So that is one of the things that I feel like, as far as like volume and, just how aggressive to be as an assistant director, that kind of varies from set to set. Now, in general, my style is very laid back, and I like to communicate a lot. You have to communicate in order to get the job done, and that's something that is universal. It doesn't matter what set you're on. You have to talk to people. You have to communicate. I like to think that I try to keep a cool, calm demeanor, even in very stressful situations, and I feel like that's very important to always always attack the set from a level position. You don't want to come in and just create chaos on a set, because as an assistant director, the tone that you set is kind of like the tone that the set will also carry. So if you come in chaotic, the set will eventually rise to a chaotic point. If I come in to set and I'm sitting down, then it makes it seem as if nobody's here to work. Everybody's going to kind of gauge the temperature off of the assistant director department. So if you come into a set and the first AD, the second AD is sitting down or not paying attention on their phones, then there's things that aren't going to get done. So you just got to really come in and be very assertive. Come in, gauge the situation, see how the crew works, see how the producers kind of, how are they trying to run things. Talk to the producers, talk to your first AD. Ask your first AD, like, if you've never worked with that first AD before, talk to them, have a conversation with them before shooting, and kind of get to know, like how do you like to run your sets. It's all about communication, and the biggest thing about communication is if you talk to somebody beforehand and communicate with them beforehand, if things hit the fan or the ball is dropped, at least you can say, well, I covered my bases. So the best piece of advice or information that I received to prepare me for the DGA training program, I wouldn't say that it was the advice that I got. I wouldn't say that it was aimed specifically at me getting into the program. It was just good advice I got as a PA that helped me to become a good PA, that eventually helped me get into the DGA training program. Because when I applied to the DGA training program, I was very quiet about it. So I didn't talk to anybody who had gone through the program previously to get any kind of like advice specifically on the process. I kind of just went through it. One of my first days on set, I was catching first team, and it was literally my first day on set. And Uriel, the second AD, he said, hey, stand in the lobby and call it out when first team lands. I'm like, all right, cool. So he gives me a call sheet. Mind you, I don't know what any of these actors look like. So the first thing I do is I start Googling the names of the actors so that I can recognize them when they land. I got like 3 actors that landed. I called it out on the walkie. And then the other first team PA, she was struggling with breakfast orders. So I was like, oh, all right, cool, let me help you out with breakfast. And so I leave the lobby to go help her out with breakfast orders. Mind you, I didn't understand that I was supposed to be in the lobby catching all of the actors that were landing at that time, because I didn't understand how to read a call sheet. So after I got like 3 actors, I went to go help her out with breakfast order. Uriel comes down to the lobby. He sees that I'm not in the lobby, and he's like, Felix, where are you? You're supposed to stay in the lobby. And so I go back to the lobby. He's like, whenever I tell you to do something, stay there until I tell you to do something else. And so that was one of the first things that I learned was if an AD gives you an order, you kind of have to know exactly what that order entails, and then you stay there or you stay on that mission or that task until that task is complete. And if you're not sure if that task is complete, you have to check in with the AD, give them an update, and then they'll tell you what they want you to do. So that was one of the biggest lessons I learned, and that was my first day on a set, was just see the job through. And I learned how big communication was just with that one task. I just got thrown straight in the fire. I remember one day I was working on this show called 24 Legacy. It was a Fox show, a spinoff of 24, which was a really popular show. So I'm working on 24 Legacy, and I'm just doing like a lockup, and the key PA moved my lockup closer to camera, and I was standing there, and camera was gunning my way, and we're about to go, pictures up, and the first AD looks my way, and he says, "Hey, are you locking up over there?" He says it on the walkie. I said, "Yes, sir, I'm locking up over there." He said, "All right, cool. Well, anytime you come on a set, introduce yourself to the first AD." And so I learned that, and from that day on, I did not care if I was a day player. I didn't care, where I was or who I was. I always made sure that I introduced myself to the first AD, and that was a game changer. Just getting the confidence to step on a set and just feel like, this is not my set, but I'm gonna step onto this set as if I belong here, and you need to know my name. So that was great advice that I got, and things like that. They were small. Small notes, but they really made a profound impact on how I carried myself when I stepped onto a set or anytime I went to work on a job. So my directorial influences, one of my biggest influences is Spike Lee. I just admire the path that he took in order to get to the position that he's in. And he also started his professional film career, like his training process in the AUC. Like his biggest influence as a filmmaker is Dr. E, who was a professor at CAU when he was there and taught Spike Lee. When I went to Clark, he was still a professor there. So we actually have one of the same mentors. So he's one of my largest influences as a director. I love John Singleton. What he was able to do at 21 years old with Boys in the Hood is absolutely amazing. Obviously, both of those guys went to big name film schools. Spike went to NYU. John Singleton went to USC. So they were definitely big influences early on with me wanting to tell certain stories. Then on the other hand, more recently, I've also really enjoyed Jordan Peele's work. I love what he's doing with like psychological thriller and like making these horror movies that have like these interesting social messages as well. Also a big fan of Christopher Nolan. The way he tells stories in a non-linear fashion is very captivating and inspiring, and definitely somebody who I'm inspired by and influences some of the work that I do. And Quentin Tarantino. I also enjoy the way he tells stories in a non-linear fashion.